And welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Live here on Keystroke Medium. I am Josh Hayes, here as always with Scott Moon, and today our guest Dan Alatorre, if I've said that correctly.
Pretty close, good job.
Yes, is
okay, we're done.
Yeah, and end the show. He's here to talk about his new book, Rogue Elements, and also today we're going to be talking about how to avoid and deal with scams as an author. Dan has some recent experience in that realm, and I've seen and witnessed other authors and even some publishers and editors kind of get the shaft when it comes to certain deals on the internet, because there's a lot of people out there trying to take advantage. But welcome. It's January 20th. If you guys weren't paying attention yesterday, something really important happened.
Not that important. I mean,
it was super important, Scott.
Well, did it have to do with gluten?
No, the Chiefs are going to the Super Bowl.
Oh, that's right.
The Chiefs are going to the Super Bowl. The first time in 50 years, the Chiefs are going to the Super Bowl. We were in Super Bowl 4, and now we're going to 54. And the only way that could have been better is had the Packers won yesterday, because we played the Packers in Super Bowl 4. And if they would have beaten San Francisco yesterday, it would have been like a rematch 50 years later. But
pretty epic.
As you can see, I am bathing in the Chiefs' glory right now.
I really thought you'd have face paint.
I should. So
like painted through the beard. I think it would work.
February 3rd, I think, will be the episode after Super Bowl Sunday. I'll see if I can face paint. Maybe I can get like some stickers, stuff.
Unless you're depressed because you got killed. Unless you lose the Super Bowl.
Okay, we're gonna fix this right here. So, hi Dan. So we're gonna have a great episode with Dan today. Scott's somehow lost his connection to the show.
They got my Chiefs colors on, right?
See, that's all that really matters. We'll bring him back, but we're gonna put him on the bottom for that ridiculous.
But he's wearing a very important piece of attire too. Tip your head down a little bit so they can see you're advertising my book for me.
Yeah, Rogue.
Yes, I'm surprised you didn't get the promo. Maybe the Chiefs winning.
Rogue Elements, yeah.
That's right.
One or both. There you go.
Everybody in the live chat, welcome to this crazy episode of Live on this Monday night. Ken Britt says real men dye their beards.
Sometimes. I mean, like
what?
I'm not sure if I dye my beard for the Chiefs game, but hi everybody. Rick and Lauren and Jay Clifton and Guy are here. Ken and Corvo are here, and Jay Oliveira is here. Hello. Welcome everybody. And I want to just point out that I said his name right today. Oh, Walt's here too.
Good job.
Mm-hmm.
Live chat's filling up, and everybody does seem to support the Chiefs in the live chat.
That's right. Well, I don't. If you
get booted out,
that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
If you don't support the Chiefs, you get banned. It's an automatic ban. So I can't tell who the Facebook user is, but I think Rick is the first YouTube comment. So Rick gets the Keystroke Medium golf clap of appreciation for being the first comment.
Winner.
Show winner. And I like to post them up randomly, so the first person that sees it wins. So there you go. All right. We'll get right into it. I want to talk about something cool that I saw this week, which actually I saw it today in one of our friends of the show, Brandon Ellis, is moving to Bali, and
cool was that?
He's documenting his journey to becoming a 6-figure author on a vlog on YouTube, which is really cool. It's a whole bunch of videos that he's putting up, kind of documenting his journey, and not just on his writing, but also on his life in Bali. And I think that's super cool. He put up a video today of his house. It's an Airbnb, I guess, that they're staying at for a month, but it's like really nice. Like he in the video, he's like, it's kind of a crappy house. When I saw it, and I was like, man, that's really nice.
Living in Bali.
Yeah. And it's in Bali. Right. So that was something cool that I saw today. And I'm this close to finishing my super secret short story.
Oh
yeah. I was almost done with it today, and then the kids got carried away, and so I'll have to finish it. Maybe I'll finish it tonight or tomorrow and get it sent off. But Scott, what about you, man? Done anything fun this week?
Well, yeah. I mean, I guess I finished Reaper 9 last night. Sent that off to the editor. Started editing Outline Reaper 10 and working on another book, the Aethon project called 13 Mercenaries. Let's see. We ordered a bike. We talked about that last episode. So that's coming in tomorrow, and just pretty much the same stuff. Interesting, disgusting stories at work that we don't usually talk about on this show because they're so horrific.
Yeah,
because they're good stuff, good times.
And Dan, you just released a book a couple of weeks ago. How's that release going for you?
Oh, it's going good. It's always a little bit of a roll of the dice when you put something new out there. This is the second book in the trilogy series, and I finished writing the third book in the series a day or two ago. So yesterday, I'm doing a lot of bleary-eyed editing of an 80,000 word tome that needs to be live February 28th.
Very cool. Very cool.
Well, I saw it's up for pre-order too, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Yep.
You want to talk about meeting a deadline? Go ahead and set yourself a pre-order date out there. Get a couple other people who buy that book in anticipation of you finishing it.
Yeah.
Get a little motivation.
I'm chasing a pre-order date right now. That the date's in April, but I need to have the book done like the first week of February.
See, your date's in April because you're smarter than I am. See, I thought April, February. That's plenty of time.
I think Josh learned that through painful experience. The last pre-order.
Yes, because book 2, I did a pre-order, and we actually, I didn't hit it, and I sent a message to my buddy who's publishing the book, and I said, hey man, I'm not going to hit this deadline. And fortunately, Amazon had just changed the rules on pre-order, so you could adjust it, and so we were able to push it back. And so this
just one book, one time.
Yeah. Right. So for this book, I was like, let's give us 6 months. Let's do that. But that should be fine.
Yeah, they say pre-orders deadlines are so nice how they make that sound as they just go sailing right on by.
Yeah. I love watching them go by.
That's right. Let's see. Corvo says he respects your background. Fine shelves. I like that.
My background here. I'm like, how would you read my resume? Gotcha.
Yeah. We've been checking up on you. You're very thorough.
That's right.
Ran a triple I.
Internet these days. Yeah, it's all out there, I guess.
Well, you mentioned at the pre-show that this was your 30th, or you're working on your 30th novel.
The one I just completed a couple days ago is number 30. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Nice.
So let's talk about that for a minute. Been writing for a number of years now. Published 29 books, have finished 30.
Yeah.
How did you get into this? You're right, and this Rogue Elements, it's a medical thriller.
Yeah.
Is that your main genre? Do you write in other genres?
No. So how I got into it was, so before the show, his daughter came in and said hi to us all. And back when I had a baby on the way, she's now 9. So back then I was doing some writing. I would put little blurbs on Facebook and stuff, little funny stories about, how you've got first baby on the way, right? My one and only child. So we're redecorating the house, we're painting, we're doing all this crazy stuff that you do the first time. I think after number 3 or 4, that maybe you don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
So all my friends were reading this stuff and they were just having a blast because my wife and I are about 20 years older than most people when they first had their kids. We weren't able to have kids earlier. And so they're all, their kids are like having kids and their kids are going to college and we're pregnant. So they were just loving everything, the diapers, the midnight feedings, the whole 9 yards. So I'm blogging about, not blogging, I was putting little comments and little stories on Facebook. And my friends from high school were just loving it. And so, but you love your children, so you write something really poignant. And I had a job back then that I would leave, I would write something, post at 6:30 in the morning. I wouldn't check Facebook or anything until I came home at night. And you have like 150 comments. And so I learned real quick, hey, and one of my friends goes, you should write a book. So I did. And it did really well as far as a family humor kind of thing. And the unique part of that was, guy who's, 40, getting ready to have his first kid. And so it was a lot of fun. But from there, I always used to write. A little kid I wrote, made comic books, on and on and on. I was editor of the high school newspaper. I created a grade school newspaper at my school. So I just always wrote. So I thought, okay, well, this is fun. I enjoy it. Let's see where it goes. And that was how I got into it. So I went from writing comedy and stuff to starting writing thrillers. And I got enticed by a very good friend, Jennifer Ruff, who's a great medical thriller writer. And she said, you should think about writing a medical thriller. A couple of USA Today bestselling authors and some New York Times bestselling authors were putting together like a little marketing group thing, and they invited me to be part of it. So, as far as I was concerned, that's like, if you're, minor league baseball player and the Yankees call you up and say, hey, how'd you like to come pitch for us?
Come hang out with us and play some baseball.
I'm going to say yes to that. So I get in this group with these great writers and learn so much, just so much. And unfortunately, as part of that, you meet people, you're always asking, hey, what's working for you? What's working for you? What's this, that? And one of them was talking about, hey, there's this guy doing some marketing. Maybe we should do some things with him. Word of mouth is always very important. And hey, look, if you tried this guy and used him, what the heck? And so that was how we ended up, kind of segueing, I guess, into our other topic for tonight. But as I had never written a medical thriller before, I wrote a couple thrillers, and I started a murder mystery series, and I was really enjoying writing that. And I had like a 5-book series lined up. And so Jennifer, she edits for me as well. And she said, you should think about doing this. There's a lot of similar components. Here's what's different. Think about it. So that's what the heck, I'll give it a shot. And it was I think it's on its way to being my most successful book. That's The Gamma Sequence. Just came out a couple of months ago. And I wrote it as a one and done. Like, that was fun. I'm going to go back over here and work on my murder mysteries. And it started doing really well. And people started saying, hey, well, this really looks like there's going to be a sequel and all this. So I was like, yeah, there is.
That's my plan all along. Yeah.
You're like, how do I come up with a sequel for this? So that was how that whole thing kind of evolved there. But it's been a lot of fun. It really is. And the different elements of a medical thriller versus a regular murder mystery and other types of psychological thriller, it's like, say, 70 or 80% the same, and maybe that last 30% is a lot of fun to stretch your writer muscles a little bit and try a little bit different genre, a completely different genre.
Yeah, so it's interesting that you mentioned that, because you say you start out writing comedy and then you go to thriller.
Yeah.
Was that a hard jump for you to make, or and what was the circumstances that led you to say thriller is what I want to write?
I got insulted. I wrote a series.
That's the best reason to do anything.
Best reason ever.
In the family humor books, there's a common thread about a rare heart condition that my daughter got diagnosed with. It's potentially fatal. Now, long story short, don't want to scare anybody. She's fine. Everything's fine. We got her all checked out and all that. But way early on in the deal, we didn't know. So I thought, this is a little voice we can have fun, and we're going to talk about some of the serious stuff in these books, because it's always present in the books anyway. But it's not the main thing. The main thing is just run around having fun with your kid and doing fun stuff like that. So one of my friends, you meet lots of author friends doing things like this and blogging and all the other things you do. And a friend of mine in California said she liked the little serious threads here and there that kind of poke through in the stories. And would I ever consider writing something more dramatic? And I was like, well, gosh, that stuff was pretty dramatic. She goes, the way you wrote it, though, there's no tension. I was like, well, it's a comedy. I don't really want to scare people.
Right.
And she goes, I want you to read this book. She recommended a book. And she goes, and you'll see there's a setup and some tension and suspense. And that's what, of a different genre, that's what people want. And I'm looking at that, and you guys will appreciate this. If you think about it, when you're writing a joke or a funny story, there's a setup, there's a premise, there's drawing it out, then there's your big punchline. Same building blocks, just different components in writing a thriller. So I said, okay, but the thing she stressed to me was there's no tension in the type of story I was writing, which there really wasn't supposed to be. She said there's no tension in it. Now that book she was referring to that I wrote was called The Long Cutie, and that's kind of the nickname of that heart condition, long QT.
Okay.
So that one I interspersed funny stories about me and my kid versus these other people who had that condition, and their stories were not so funny. Some of them died, etc. So she's reading it. She's like, if you want to do stuff like that, this is what you got to add. So I researched a bit, and I had met some author friends, and joined a critique group, online critique group, and I wrote a book called The Navigators. It's a time travel story where these college kids discover a time machine, and they're paleontologists. They don't know what they discovered. They don't know if it's from the future or the past, blah, blah, blah. So that story is supposed to be a page turner, thrill-a-minute type, Indiana Jones, the first couple of minutes of Raiders of the Lost Ark kind of thing. And it did really well. And it was exactly that, a lot of tension. So from there, I'm sitting here thinking, well, I can write comedy, I can write drama, I can write thrillers, I can write anything. So I wrote a romance, and it, and
those are
so
tough, man.
There's so many people that have hit the romance roadblock. Oh yeah, it'll be easy. Everybody's doing it. No, it's a lot harder.
What's crazy is you think romance is going to be super easy to write. Like,
No.
people fall in love and blah, blah, blah. But no, romance readers are harsh, man. I think romance readers are more harsh than
They know what they want, for sure.
like fantasy readers.
Exactly.
I mean, they know exactly what they want and how they want it.
And that's right. They want what they want. So let's suppose you're going down to the grocery store and you want to get a gallon of milk, and you're walking down the aisle and you see these oil cans, okay? Gray oil, big metallic letters on the front. And that's what somebody's trying to sell their milk in. They're like, you know what? Here's what milk should look like. Big white plastic thing, right? I'm not going to, you can have the best milk in the world. I'm not drinking out of an oil can.
Not drinking your oil can milk. Get out of my face.
So you can set it up, deliver the package so that what's inside is what they want. Put the package so that's what they want, describe it the way they want. But once you're willing to play within certain, color within certain lines, play within certain boundaries, then you can have all the fun you want. You can, have a romantic comedy, you can have dramatic romance and all that kind of stuff. My problem was I was just having a good old time, and there was romance in the story. It was a romance-driven story, but it was a lot of comedy, a lot of sex. It was really just trying to wear too many hats, and it didn't work. So I said, okay, that's fine. I don't know if I want to do that. There's a lot of other things I want to try first. And so that's where I started into a little more serious works and drama that had maybe one or two guys who would quit here and there, but weren't, laughing it up all the time as they were doing serious stuff.
And so you mentioned earlier when you were talking about the thriller and medical thriller, where there's about 30% difference in the way that you kind of construct those and the elements that go along with them, because obviously you've got to do a little bit more or a different research for the medical stuff.
Yeah.
Was that as a result of just being invited to that group, or were you generally more interested in medical thrillers? Because they do really well. I mean, the different genres, like you've got is it Dean Koontz? No,
Koontz, right? He writes.
Is that medical thrillers? Yeah.
Robin Cook.
Robin Cook. That's the guy I was thinking of. Yeah.
Robin Cook's the guy everybody thinks of.
Yeah.
And so at first she says you should think about this, and I'm like, no, I'm happy over here in my murder mystery thing. But as I looked at the group and who was in it, I'm like, gosh, there's a lot of New York Times bestselling authors. Worst case, and for this particular project, they you had to have a book of a certain size. They wanted something new. We were going to market together like as a group, right?
Right.
I thought, worst case, I'll get to interact with these guys. I'll learn a bunch. I'll get some networking done. And the biggest thing we're always going to say is marketing. It's always changing, so you got to always be learning new things. So you got to say yes to a lot of things, maybe where get out of your comfort zone. So I said, okay, fine. So as I'm saying no, or as I'm getting ready to say no, I'm kind of also researching, saying it's a really good opportunity. I think I asked my wife, and she was like, hey, what do you got to lose? I was like, well, okay, yeah, not a lot. And when you start looking into it, then is when you find out, okay, it's got to have these certain components. Well, my father was a physician, so that doesn't make me a doctor, but it makes me not unfamiliar with the type of conversations that doctors have, how they carry themselves. If we had a dinner party at our house, it was like 6 doctors, 6 nurses who were their wives. My next door neighbor is a nurse. My mom is a nurse. The lady on the other side of our house, of the other house next door, was a nurse. So I mean, it's not like it's an unfamiliar territory. Right. And in those days, my dad took a lot of house calls at home. If our house phone rang after hours, instead of going to a service, it rang to our house. So, you're hearing conversations from the doctor's side of it, as well as he's talking to somebody. Come meet me at my office, or I'll see you at the hospital, that kind of stuff. So there's that. Then the internet, man, if you want to, I was looking up today, it's like, what does a cyanide canister look like? So you Google it. I need to look at images. It can look like this, this, this. Okay. So there's so much information available. If somebody's doing cryogenics, which is part of the story in my trilogy here, what's involved. There's warming blankets, there's certain fluids, there's heart pumps, there's, they got to change the blood and keep it cool. There's just a lot of stuff in how those processes, which maybe 20 years ago, you got to go to the library and maybe even there you don't find it. But today, 10 minutes later, you've got all the information. And now it's just, now I have this vat of information. How often do I need to dip into it to paint this picture I'm doing? And it's not as often.
Good way to put it.
Yeah,
that's a good way to put it.
Absorb the information, but you're not putting it all out there on the canvas.
Yep.
You got to know your stuff. You got to do some research, which is true of anything. You got to research guns if you're going to write detective stories and all that.
Yeah. So you kind of came to the storytelling way kind of by accident. Were you a big reader before you got to this place in your life? Because a lot of people start off reading everything, and then at one point, I want to write a novel, and then that's how they get into it.
I have lots of friends who are like that. One of my very first editors was like that. She read a ton, very prolific reader type of. And my current editor, Jennifer Ruff, is the big reader, big audio, a lot of books. I would say I read a lot when I was in college and a couple years after that. And then you get busy with work and maybe you're not reading so much. And I like movies, right? So I would say my old editor, we would joke that she would say, "You read a lot." And I was like, "I don't read at all." But when I was in a critique group, I was reading the equivalent of maybe 5 novels a week, right? Doing critiques for other people.
Right.
Because I was the type of critique partner who, I used to be a sales major. So I was real good at finding what was wrong. A lot of times when you read something that just doesn't strike you right, you just kind of gloss over. If you're a reader, you just kind of gloss over it and go on. And if there's enough of that, you don't like the book, you put it aside. As a critique partner, when that kind of thing sticks out at you, I'm real good at just making a little note. You might say this way or that way. But then you structure it in a positive way. It's like, if I like the story, have you thought about maybe saying it this way or this way? And so they liked my types of critiques. But then in exchange, they would give me, I would always say, we got to hold ourselves to the Hemingway standard. We're going to shoot for that. If we fall short, we fall short. But if, we'll still be pushing ourselves to be better each time. And so I would say typically, no, I don't read a lot. But I think the fact is, I read a ton.
Do you think now that you've had a lot of success in medical thriller and thriller that you'd ever go back to trying like a romance or doing another genre now that you've...
Sure. Yeah, you got to try different things. Probably all of you, your little idea basket, right, have 20 different stories you want to write. They're not all, the same type of genre that you've been writing. There's a lot of those in there, but you'll be going somewhere and you're like, oh, that would be a neat idea. Or you're watching the news and you learn something. A lot of the times, the things I'm writing about, a lot of times they're very kind of current events, issues, kind of things like artificial intelligence or genetic engineering of humans and that type of stuff. And you look at it, it's like they've been discussing these topics for 20, 30 years, but technology keeps advancing. So, it's always kind of topical and it's always kind of scary because it's the unknown. But yeah, you got to try different things as well. And you can do that. We were talking a little bit about short stories. That's a great place to do that. Each year, my author friends and I used to blog a lot, and I had a writing contest on my blog, and just a lot of great writers out there who would send their stuff in, and we awarded a prize and everything. And I said, we should do something with these stories. So we said, let's have a contest where we have a theme. Where we created a horror anthology. We don't do it anymore, but not on the blog. But that gave people who normally wouldn't write horror stories a chance to write horror stories. They just write a short story and we put them all together. So we all get a little bit of recognition. It lets you stretch your writer muscles. That's a great place. And they're everywhere. These types of anthologies, you'll find them. It's a great place to try a romance. But the beauty of that also is when you're working with that group, 20 other romance writers, they're going to tell you, hey, it needs to do this and this. One other thing is, a lot of stories, I'll reference Star Wars, like the original Star Wars from the 70s.
The only Star Wars.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Maybe the Chiefs will win the Super Bowl now. I'm feeling it. But that's exactly right.
I feel like there should be a separate genre of thrillers called Kansas City Chiefs thrillers. I'm sure it'd be a big seller this
There's a big one coming in 2 weeks. We'll see how it is.
That's right.
Maybe there will be a sequel. Maybe there won't.
Yeah.
So
to talk about
as
Star
an
Wars.
example, Star Wars, is it adventure? Some people say it's a cowboy movie set in space, but there's an element of romance. There's definitely good guy, bad guy. There's science fiction, obviously. But now when you think about it, how do you get that romantic element in there if you're not a good romance writer? So I was smart enough to realize that, and I listened to good storytellers like George Lucas and Steven Spielberg. So when I was writing my different stories, if there was going to be in the Navigators, that one, there was going to be a little romance in there. It wasn't the main plot, there was a subplot. So in my critique group, which is not an online critique group, I sought out people who wrote romance, and I said, this is what I'm doing. I know you write romance, I'm writing science fiction, thriller kind of thing, but there's going to be some romantic scenes. Would you help me with those? And just as an example, so the big moment with the boy and the girl get together to kiss the first time, it's like he had eyes for her, she was seeing somebody else, blah, blah, blah. There's like one paragraph where they finally kiss. And you got to describe the kiss, and you got to build up to it and all that, and you got to finish it properly. I think I wrote that paragraph, it's like 5 or 10 sentences. I probably wrote it 6 or 8 times because the romance people were like, it's not right. You need to do this, you need to do that. Now, for that one scene, sure, I'm willing to learn how to quote unquote write romance for that scene because I want that scene to go smooth and seamless. Right. I don't want you to notice it as, oh, we've made this big departure and it's awkward. It needs to be smooth and seamless, just like the rest of the story, which means you've got to build that skill up. And so there's a great reason to do that because lots of stories that aren't strictly romance are going to have a romantic element. You got to learn how to do it. Just like romance stories might have a great romance I read was a erotica. It was like a cops and robbers kind of thing. And I was a critique partner for a lady who's a New York Times bestselling author for that story. And it was brilliant, but it was a lot of romance, right? A lot of sex, obviously, because it was erotica. But great tension, great drama, a lot of other things that I never thought would be in a book like that, which is why she's a New York Times bestselling author.
Yeah.
That's so dumb.
That's Scott and I have joked a lot that if we could get into writing erotica, we could just do that and sell that.
So I'll tell you something funny about erotica, right? Because I did write a romance. I said there was a lot of sex in it. So I understand why people enjoy erotica. There's the romance, there's the sex. The sex part would be the payoff after the big romance, the build-up, right? Yeah. But the thing is, I think the reason why the erotica writers enjoy it so much, why they enjoy writing it so much, aside from the big pay, is if you think about it, you're writing, say, an action scene, shoot them up and all this kind of stuff. You may work on that scene a couple days. Now transfer that mindset over. You're doing a sex scene for a couple days. Kind of changes your world a little bit, you know? Yeah. Maybe you've done that. You got 4 kids. So maybe I'm just saying. Yeah.
Well, it's like
like Commando Raid.
Yeah, it's like sex scenes in movies, right? Like they shoot those scenes over like 3 or 4 days, and you're like, how much fun is it on the 4th day when you're like, meh.
Good time.
I want to move on to talk about the scamming of authors and then kind of what happened with you guys in your collection. Sure. First, I want to talk about the show sponsor for tonight. If I can find the of course it's not on this computer, it's on the other computer. Hold on, let me bring it up.
It's computers.
I know.
Just laying around everywhere.
It's I've got 2 computers in front of me and my iPad behind me, and I'm not sure when I brought it up. Of course, Amazon didn't go in correctly. This week's sponsor is Lauren Moore and Richard Fox, and their new book, King of Sidonia. If I could find the link, it's the sequel to Richard's book, The Queen of Sidonia. Queen of Sidonia. I had it brought up. There it is. There it is. Now we got it. Okay. The King of Sidonia, and I don't have the cover to show. Well, let's see. Maybe I can. Let's see if I can do it. For Lauren. We'll do it for Lauren. First of all, so this is a really cool thing because Scott and I have both collabed with Richard, and now Lauren, who's also a host of Keystroke Medium on the Writer's Journey on Thursdays, is now co-writing with Richard. And this book that she's written is the sequel to a book that Richard wrote before he wrote The Ember War. He had written some alternate history.
He wrote some thrillers, some military thrillers, alternate history, and then I think this is YA was kind of sci-fi YA, something like that.
So yeah, it was. Well, I don't think that he intended it to be YA, but I think it kind of grew into that. Man, that's a horrible picture. Well, let's see if I can do it anyway. Oh, I almost closed the screen down. All right, share. There we go. The King of Sidonia Book 2 by Richard Fox and Lauren Moore. It is out tomorrow. It's up for pre-order. Hold on. Where's the... Lost it. There we go. Okay. Here is the blurb. I like how prepared I am for this episode.
I know. That is some great artwork, by the way, while you get your blurb ready.
A peaceful planet under attack, one king stands in the way. A year after the invasion that almost destroyed the planet, Sidonia has rebuilt with their new king and queen at the vanguard. But the marriage entered into to guarantee an ally and stability for the nation is fragile. Love is not as simple as signing your name on a document, and the new queen has a mind of her own. Now, terrorists are infiltrating the capital, and the death toll is rising. King Vincent is overwhelmed, and the queen feels overlooked. When she decides to call it quits, she runs straight into an enemy plot. Ding! The King of Sidonia is a space opera filled with action, adventure, clean romance. Romance. We were just talking about that. And an exciting conclusion to Cosmia and Vince's story of doom. Definitely pick it up. The King of Sidonia. Let me get the link. The link so you guys can pick it up in the live chat. If you're listening in the audio later, check the show notes on the podcast because you need to go pick it up right now on Audible or Amazon rather. I'm sure it will be on Audible. Why do I keep losing the thing? It's $3.99 right now, and it releases tomorrow. Congratulations, Lauren. That's 2 books Lauren's released in what, a month?
Within a month, yeah.
When did we release the Writer's Dream? Like last month. So
2 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago. So a nonfiction book and a fiction book in under a month. Very good, Lauren. Clappity clap.
Clap for Lauren.
Clappity clap.
Big clap for Lauren.
Okay, so publishing and indie publishing is great. Scott and I have been involved in indie publishing since 2012, 2013-ish. Well, a little bit actually longer for Scott than me. And over those years, we've definitely seen a lot of different ways of publishing come and go, a lot of different scams and shady people come and go. There have been people who portray themselves as publishers just to snag people's books up and publish them, doing absolutely nothing than the author couldn't do themselves, and then taking a good chunk of money for themselves for no other reason than just taking the money. And I think that's super shady. And usually they get found out in very short order. People catch on very quick, but there are some people that are not wise to that. And you set up a good website and you say, hey, I'm a publisher and these are my credits, whether they're made up or not. And a struggling author or a new author looks at that and goes, oh wow, a publisher wants to publish my book. That's great. I'm going to do that.
That's the dream.
And they sometimes maybe they don't even know that they're getting taken advantage of until they hear stories from other people. And like, well, that's not what happened to me. So I'm very aware that it's a topic that is not covered too much because there's not a lot of people that either A, want to admit that they got scammed, or B, want to call anybody out or have problems with that. But I definitely think it's something that needs to be talked about because it still goes on. Obviously, it still goes on, and people are still taking advantage of authors. And now, with your particular situation, it wasn't just that they were publishing your book and taking your money or marketing it and taking your money. They took a lot of money
from some charitable organizations as well.
And on on your blog, it's danalatorre.com. On December 22nd, you posted a fairly long blog about what happened with this scheme, as it were, titled "Wid Bastion Ripped Me Off." And the beginning paragraph is became a USA Today bestselling author, something very proud of. But in the process, Wid Bastion, an alleged marketer, stole more than $20,000 from me and the other authors I worked with. So give us a little background here. This is the medical thriller thing that you were talking about.
Yeah. So what the idea was, if you're going to try to get your book out there, it's great. You wrote your book, you put it on Amazon, you get an agent, and they do it. And you're always looking to market it. You're trying to find out what are good sources. So there are lots and lots of good places to market. But when you're new, you don't necessarily know which are the good ones. You ask people, you shop around. Maybe you've been a subscriber to a lot of places like BookBub and stuff. So you've been a subscriber to them for 5 years. You know they're pretty good. So that's all well and good. So we were looking to do some group marketing, network with each other, and that type of thing. And a lot of these bigger authors will have their own newsletter. So some of these guys have 20 and 30,000 subscribers on their newsletter, right? I have like 3,000 on mine, and it was, clawing to get each and every one of them. So you're always trying to meet more until I release a book and I sell 240 million copies. Then I always figure there's some other Americans or around the world that haven't bought my book who might like it. So you want to say, okay, I'm doing these that I know work, these venues. I need to find other venues. So the idea behind this was, and these are almost all of them established authors. The idea was, okay, let's pool our resources. We'll cross-market to each other's subscriber lists, which is great for me. Like I said, I got 3,000. I'll be networking with 20 people who some have 5,000, some have 10,000, some have 20,000. So that's great. I'll be getting information from them. And then the idea was, as part of that, we will create a box set. We'll all take a book. We'll all put it together. Now, if you're going to do that, this has to be one document that publishes on Amazon. So let's just suppose it's the three of us. I got Josh's book. I got Scott's book. Or actually, let's turn it around. Let's say it's Josh is going to do it. So Scott and I give our books, the file, to Josh. He compiles it and he publishes it. We all going to vote on what the cover is going to look like, the marketing. But Josh is going to, one person has to publish it. Unless we have some kind of joint account where I can see your password and all that, there's got to be an element of trust involved. But guess what? There's always an element of trust involved when you're signing up. Doesn't matter who it is, Book Gorilla, BookSense, ENT. You're trusting they're going to do their job, or if it gets screwed up, that they'll take care of you. And this guy was recommended. So I did some research, and I saw on K-boards there were people, talking bad about this particular guy. I'll go ahead and name his name. We'll get to it in a minute. I'm not sure his name matters. His name is Wid Bastion. So that's Widstow Bastion, Widstow T Bastion. If you look at the blog, he spelled his name in legal documents that we found like 6 or 8 different times. And there's a flag for you. But we didn't do that research till afterwards. So anyway, we give our books to Scott, and I give our books to Josh, and we say, okay, Josh, let's do some advertising. I'll throw you 500. Scott will throw you 500. You do the legwork for us. We're paying you basically to market the book. So you're going to buy a bunch of ads. We all know that costs money. You're going to do some promotions. And Josh comes back and says, listen, if you guys will cross network, market to each other, if you'll all do some free posts on social media, we'll get a lot of buzz. Now imagine this times 20, right? So your effort, there's a huge multiplier effect, because my people aren't just seeing my book, but they're seeing your guys' books too. And it's like, oh, hey, there's something new. So there's a benefit to you. There's a benefit to me for having content to my subscribers. So we're marketing the book. But he has to have the file, which means right away, if he wants to just split those things off and sell them himself as our book, do piracy, he could. We wouldn't know.
Right.
And then theoretically, he's buying ads. But in addition, we're all doing all this cross-marketing. So we knew to a certain extent how much we were generating of these sales without him being involved, without any of the stuff he was doing. We can't say for sure whether he bought any ads or not. I tend to think he did, because obviously we made the USA Today bestseller list, etc. But if Josh publishes the book, the checks have to go to that same one place. So Josh is now going to get the money coming back. Now, okay, so far so good, or so bad. So now to really maximize the input, I'm going to go to my friends and say, hey, this is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to have a really successful box set, get a lot of marketing for myself, some exposure, my page reads up, and every other person in the set's doing the same thing. Then we're also doing our social media. Again, a multiplier effect on that. Facebook and Twitter and all the other places. And then on top of that, Josh comes and says, in past things that I've done, past sets that I've done, if we get some kind of a sponsor with a big newsletter, for example, Wounded Warriors, they only have a couple of million subscribers. Mm-hmm. Let's say this, let's put this thing on pre-order at a discounted price. This big box set that we're going to be selling for $10, let's put it discounted. And for the pre-order, we'll go all of the pre-order charities. If the Wounded, let's just make up a charity of the ABC company. If the ABC company will market our stuff to their people, and they're going to send it out multiple times in their newsletter, because this pre-order is going to be going on for, 90 days, let's say. Then that's millions more exposure that we're getting. And those people will be told, your proceeds are going to go to the charity that you're already supporting. So you get a book, maybe 3 books, maybe 10 books, maybe 20 books for a discounted price. What's not to love, right? We feel good, they feel good, everybody feels good, the charity's getting a big check. So I go back to my people and say, we've got a big sponsor. Now, if you buy the book, we're going to be giving some money to ABC Company. Oh, and there was another one for pets. So we had one for veterans and one's for pets, like homeless veterans and pets, 2 separate ones. So giant tons of subscribers over on the pet thing to, like adopting, stray animals and stuff. So the people who had those contacts went to those charities and said, we think we'll be able to generate about maybe $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000 that we'll be able to give to you. So of course the marketing director over there is going to say, we would love that.
Yeah.
So we're doing all this stuff, and then we start watching the numbers. Now, how hard, you guys have done this, but if anybody doesn't know, it's not that hard to go over your Amazon account and take a screenshot and say, this is what our pre-order number is. It takes maybe 30 seconds, maybe.
If your internet is kind of crappy, maybe a little longer.
So we kept asking, we had a Facebook group so we could all talk to each other. And we kept asking with the alleged marketing, basically thief. And I don't say that with any vindictiveness. He took the money. He's a thief. And he's disappeared since, and he's going to change his name again and all that nonsense. So the charities do their thing. They do their end. We all do our end. And we're asking, can you show us numbers? Are there any receipts for anything? Where did you buy an ad so I can take the ad and share it with my friends so they can get more clicks so we can, don't have any of that information. What? Come on, where you spent the money. I'm not asking for the secret sauce to the Big Mac. I'm just saying, if you bought a BookBub or you bought an ENT, tell me so I can click and share and more social media awareness, right? The thing we're all supposed to be doing. All right, so we're watching the numbers to the extent that he'll tell us the numbers. So we're relying now on Josh just tells us what they are. We don't actually see any screenshots or reports. And honestly, it wouldn't be that hard to fake a screenshot anyway. So finally, but one thing you can see is when the numbers actually come out, when all these big media companies report books that are selling, you can go to USA Today and you can see, look, there's our book. We did it. So we had that part. Now, in addition, we were told, and we knew from some people use affiliate clicks and things like that, we had a good idea of how many books we had sold. We sold a ton of books. So we knew the marketing money, and every once in a while, we would get an update of, it's going to be about this, it's going to be about that. So we knew the amount of money we paid into market times 20 people. We knew the 2 charities of the pre-orders, because that was, you sell a certain number of pre-orders, there's the money, that's what it is. And then we had a huge aftermarket success. Once it was off its special price and went to a bigger price, we had a bunch of sales there. So we calculated conservatively between those aspects about $20,000. Now those checks are supposed to go to Josh in this example, to Wid the thief in real life.
$20,000 in sales or in profit?
Good question, right? So that's the gross. So magically, Josh turns out his hourly rate is $20,000 an hour. So we didn't make any money because he did 2 hours worth of work. We actually owe him 20 grand. So the problem was, that's not what the contract says. The contract says the $500 I gave Josh is all he gets. So if we made $1 million off this thing, Josh gets his 500 from me and 500 from Scott, and that's all he gets. We get the other 990,000. Plus the contracts said the pre-order sales, 100% of those proceeds are going to those charities, and that they would talk about, we're going to write this one of those big cardboard checks and take it over and blah, blah, blah. This is all part of the scam. He's telling you what you want to hear. Hey, I'm going to get you marketing, get you exposure. That's great. Don't they all say that? That's what I want anyway.
Right.
We did all the work, or almost all the work. And I'm not bitter about that. I still learned all kinds of neat things from these people. But when we did the math after the forensic autopsy on this thing, we realized about 90% of the sales came from us networking with our other existing audiences and the social media we did and all the stuff we did, because we don't think we think he spent very little on the ads. And we actually think most of the sales that we thought he was buying ads for were actually pre-orders from the charities. Their people are very loyal to them. So they'll buy a box set or something, even if they have no intention of reading it, to help out the charity.
Right.
Yeah. So time for the money to be sent back out, and all of a sudden his email doesn't work, and I just need a few more days, guys. My company accidentally got bought. Like, say I'm supposed to pay you guys tomorrow, and I come out tonight and say, we got merger. There's a merger. I tripped over it in the dark. I didn't know there was this merger.
I didn't see it there. That's weird.
Darn this thing. I'm like, so I'm going to be at this new company, and they're going to pay you. And I'm like, I don't think that works with Amazon. Amazon's deal is with you. They're going to send a check to you. You're going to send. There's no other merger company thing involved. So in hindsight, you can see a lot of the issues. In going forward, though, what can we do to make sure this doesn't happen to anybody else? Because just like any kind of crime, you nailed it exactly. People don't want to come out and name the guy who robbed him. Wid Bastian, Widbastian, except sometimes he's Widstow, sometimes he's Wit, sometimes he's Wid, sometimes he's something else. Bastian with an I-A-N, Bastian with an I-E-N, okay? Now let's just suppose if my primary contact with you is never face-to-face, and even if it is, how do you know who I am unless you fingerprint me and get a driver's license?
Right.
Let's suppose we're interacting over Facebook and email. And it takes me about 5 minutes to create a fake email and tie it to a fake Facebook profile. I can make a fake Facebook profile in 5 minutes, and now I'm contacting you there as Dan Torrance. And you're like, hey, and then maybe I grab a picture of me from 5 years ago, or maybe I grab a picture of Scott and say, here I am, that's me. But I don't,
One of those some stock art models or something.
He's not pretty enough for that. Just some random picture he grabbed. And it's not that hard to grab a couple of pictures, put them up on a Facebook, mark it private, sure, but then interact with people through there. It's just not that hard. So my big thing was exactly what you said. Most people don't want to come out and admit they're embarrassed to admit they got taken advantage of. I gotta be honest with you. If you ever had your computer hacked or a credit card theft, you've all been a victim of a crime. It's just not that big of a deal. It's going to happen to everybody at some time in their life. It just depends on what kind of crime it is. I had a convertible that got broken into. I had my apartment one time when I lived in South Tampa, got broken into. Things happen, okay? All right. This was a bunch of people who we all felt like we should have known better. These are all these New York Times bestselling authors and USA Today bestselling authors. You know what? Anybody can get ripped off. Remember the Ponzi scheme? He wasn't ripping off poor people. He was ripping off movie stars and big financial guys.
Right.
So these things are going to happen. Now, what do we do about it? We get the word out as best we can. We have attorney generals contact in, I think it's like 8 states now. There's criminal referrals being looked into. There's civil actions, obviously. The biggest thing is when you buy marketing, I pay my $500 or $750, or if I'm buying a $50, smaller ad, or if I'm doing dailies on Amazon or Facebook or anything, you're spending your money with the hopes that it comes back, but it's got to be money you can afford to lose because your marketing may not work. Maybe your cover sucks, or your blurb sucks, or you priced your book wrong that day. So you put money out there that you can afford to lose. So when I put my money into this investment, I have to take the approach that I'm going to work hard to get a profit on this deal, but I have to assume I may not make any money on this. It's marketing. Right. It may not pay off. And I got to net with a bunch of people. But at the end of the day, we told these charities they were getting a bunch of money. We showed them the numbers it should have been, and they didn't get their money either.
You also kind of look at, one of the things I think about when this stuff happens is not just the financial loss, but it's the kind of embarrassment you have, like you're talking about not having the money for the charities. But it's also like the people farther down the road that have the potential to be scammed by the same people.
Oh, absolutely.
if these scammers aren't identified or at least make people aware of it. And it's crazy because I'm former law enforcement, Scott's still current, and I don't know how many times that we get called about elderly people getting scammed over the phone by the IRS or whatever. And it's just amazing to me that people still get scammed by that with how much information is out there and how much we try to push all the time. If somebody calls you saying you've got a search warrant, you've got to pay, or arrest warrant, and you got to pay $500 so you don't get arrested. It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life, but some people believe it. And so getting the word out about the specifics of what happened, and then also the names and even, going into a deal like this where you're going into an agreement with so many people, being aware of those people that you're working with and knowing who they are and what they're about. And so you make kind of reasonable decisions about that.
Yeah. And it makes it harder on people who legitimately do marketing, because there's lots of them out there doing a good job, and they've got to now do a better job or have a harder time because of guys like this. And then the other side of it is he made about $20,000 off of us. That's not the only 20 grand he's going to make this year.
Right.
And I'm sure in 2020, he was like, I made 20 grand off those. There's so many authors out there who want what I can provide. Let's just flood the market. I'll be Steve to these guys and Bill to these guys and Fred to those guys and Betty Lou to these people, 10 different emails. I mean, you can see this multiplier effect, and people are right now as we speak, as hard as I'm trying to get the word out there, because I have no shame. What do I care? He got my money. I can hire a private detective who can find him in 24 hours, and I can show up on his doorstep tomorrow if I want to. Okay. Yeah. But that happens to cost more than the $500 I lost. So what's the point except to say, I know where you live, sucker. I do know where you live, sucker. And, I don't mind making it uncomfortable for him to go to sleep at night or maybe look over his shoulders. But at the end of the day, he hurt a lot of people. He hurt a lot of charities. There's wounded veterans out here who don't get their money and all that. But he's going to do it to other people. And the best I can do through shows like this, through the help of guys like you, is to get the word out and say, hey, you know what? Please be aware, look out, do your research. Even though those things, you think you've done some research, you can still be taken advantage of. Maybe by getting the word out there, maybe we prevent this from happening to some other people.
I think one of the biggest things to think about as an author when you're going into this is if it sounds too good to be true, it most likely is with anything. And to really do your research on what this person is providing, and getting a name and then doing that research on the name. If you're finding like a website that looks like it was built in the 80s, you're probably getting scammed. Well,
that was why the thing I did, and if you saw my blog post, there was another guy who did the same thing from the set. We contacted a few bigger blogs and we said, hey, would you share this information? So the biggest thing is if anybody puts in that guy's name with Bastion, hopefully it comes up and says, hey, this is who we dealt with. This was the name he used. This is what he looks like. But here are his 10 aliases. Here's some other companies. It used to be Genius Media, and now it's Phoenix. And you're like, oh my gosh, my friend was talking about Phoenix the other day. I wonder if it's the same thing. That's what we can do. The more people would share the information, now he's a little easier to be found out, and he'll have to work a little harder to do the scams.
Your blog post, when I do a Google search live right now, your blog post is number 4 on Google. The first one is his LinkedIn profile, which is interesting, and then his Amazon and Goodreads account. But then your blog post is number 4 on that search, so that's good.
Yeah.
And there's a couple other as I scroll down. There's warnings and writer beware article.
Yeah, they were a big one. Writer beware was a big one. Yeah, and this will be a big one too, because everybody who listens, just it doesn't have to be my article. There's 2 or 3 of them out there about this guy. Just get the information out so that when somebody goes to do their research, they can find out, this is somebody I should stay away from. But for my article, the aliases were in there, and the biggest thing for me was, the truth is the best defense. I'm not afraid of you. I'm not afraid to use your name. I got no vendetta. I'm simply telling the truth.
Yeah.
I have no worries about him coming, suing me. Bring it. Show up on my door. Serve me with subpoena. Please sue me. Because then you have to crawl out from under your rock, and then we can all have our day in court with you too.
Absolutely. That'd be the best thing. Yeah.
But you got to understand, authors, Most of them are not this way. Most of them don't want to have a fight. They're, oh, I lost my money. It was a big hassle. I feel bad. They want to crawl under a rock. And I'm like, no.
And that's why it's one of the things that makes it so painful, is because writers, most of them, all of us are dreamers. And it's probably something that's been near and dear to our hearts. And the people that prey upon them are really counting on that.
Yeah.
You know, they know exactly what to say.
These were good.
And that goes for that.
People. Yeah, exactly.
That goes from this type of thing to certain vanity presses and there's lots of things like that.
Yeah. Kronos had a comment in here. It said the guy who scammed me is Atol Purohit. Unfortunately, he scammed me legally as a vanity publisher, Indian legal con artist. Well, I mean, it's in India. It's also all over the world. What we were talking about earlier, where people do this vanity press thing. And what gets me is authors that I've seen say, what do you guys think about this? I went to this publisher and he says I have to pay him $1,500 for him to publish my book. What do you guys think? That's a good deal? And I'm like,
no.
How does that even sound like a good deal? Like, it doesn't sound like a good. Yeah, for the publisher it would be. Yeah, absolutely.
And what's even what's even worse than the financial loss is if you write a book, it's an intellectual property, and so you go sell your intellectual property to one of these vanity or publishers who's not reputable, and you can't get it back. And it might be worth something, or it might be worth everything. And I've known several authors who were fairly successful that went through like a 5-year legal battle to get these books back from somebody who was crapping all over them.
Well, and here's the other thing too. So I did this with like 19 other people. I would say easily half of them, I'm not going to name names, it's just not important, but they're embarrassed. They worked hard, they did something, they did all the things they were supposed to do. They trusted somebody who took advantage of their good nature. These are not naive people. Some of them are very shrewd business people, but we're all busy. It's not that hard to, they got some good references. I'm going to, it's only $500, whatever. But then all the hard work we did that doesn't show up on a balance sheet anywhere.
Yeah.
The biggest thing was the embarrassment, humiliation that a lot of those people have right now, that they didn't do anything wrong. They don't have any reason to feel bad, but they're, like you said, like the elderly, they feel embarrassed about it. So that's hurting them that way. And that's just wrong. It's avoidable. It shouldn't happen. And if I can have anything to do about it, I'm going to make sure this guy doesn't get away with this kind of stuff.
Well, I'm glad that you're kind of being a crusader and not sitting back and just going, oh, well, I know better next time. And it's really good to see people in our community stand up for the rights of other writers in our community. And as like I said before, there's a lot of people trying to take advantage, and if nobody stands up to them, they're just going to continue to take advantage, and it's going to make the work of everybody else that's doing it correctly that much harder to do what we love and like doing. Well, Dan, it's been a great hour talking to you on the show.
Went by fast.
It did go by fast.
I know.
I looked up at the clock and I'm like, holy crap, we've been going for an hour already.
Which is, Josh, Scott, that's a nice way of him saying Dan was going for 45 minutes.
No. Look, I love having guests that can talk, and I can just, it's like the easiest hour. Like, oh, good.
Even the part when he got up and like left the room, I was like, whoops, what did I say?
Oh, no, my daughter. So my wife put my daughter to bed, and then my wife went to bed. Well, my wife goes to bed. She doesn't wake up for anything. And so my daughter comes down and she said, I hurt my finger. I said, okay, go to bed. And she's just, like I said, go tell your mom to help you. She's like, Mom's in bed. I don't want to bug her. Well, I'm doing my show. You can't bug me either. So that's a fine.
Your finger will probably be okay. Yeah, you're going to pull through.
Yeah. So everybody in the live chat, thank you guys for coming and hanging out with us tonight on this Monday. It was awesome. A lot of interaction. If you're listening on the feed and you don't know that we have a live show, come and hang out with us every Monday at 8. By the way, we are back at 8 solid now. Jordan's basketball did not work out at all. So we're not doing basketball this season. So our 8 o'clock show time is good. If you're watching the show for the first time now and you got something out of it and enjoyed it and you want to come back next time, hit that subscribe button on YouTube, hit the little bell for the notifications for when we go live, and then give this video a like and share it around and give us some visibility. This year's goal in 2020 is to hit 1,000 subscribers. So if you haven't subscribed or you know someone that might like like to subscribe to our show, let them know, share it, and
you know how to log into their account. You can subscribe for them.
That's right. Somebody just needs to create 200 YouTube accounts and just go like our show right now. And I'm really sad that Chuck wasn't here. Chuck, our other co-host, we usually get a weekly meme of Chuck when his computer freezes, and so we didn't get that week. It's very disappointing. So
to me, it's Chuckless Monday.
Chuckless Monday. Dan, thank you again very much for coming on the show.
Gentlemen, I had a blast. I would do it again anytime.
Absolutely. I hope your third book does well, and your second book, Rogue Elements, still looks like it's doing well. You can check it out on Amazon. Pick it up if you like medical thrillers, and that'd be awesome. So I don't know what we're going to do next week. We've got the list of stuff that we're going to do for story, and we haven't picked the topic for next week yet, but we will, and then we'll let you guys know. And we want you guys to come back and hang out with us. We're going to talk about some reading. We're going to talk about some writing, and, of course, everything in between right here on Keystroke Medium. Bye.